Welcome to the AP Lazer Workshop. I am Aaron McClung, joined as usual by my co-host, the creative wizard, Alicia Vanderpool. Whether you're joining us for the first time in our AP Lazer world, or if you're still looking to join our family, or if you're just a returning family member, Frank, as usual, it's good to see you again.
Always.
Thank you for joining us. I don't want to waste any more of your time. We'll get right into today's topic, which is creating a custom wedding with your AP Lazer. We have lots of exciting things today. Alicia, can you tell us a little bit about what's going on in the machine right now?
Yeah, so if we can cut to it, you can kind of see I've started it a little bit already, and it's in the process of going. That's going to go for quite a while. So we're just going to let that run as we talk here. But I'm going to show you, we did this awesome chair. I found these velvet chairs on Amazon, which I think we can pull up a video of the last one that I ran. I'm doing a bride-groom chair. You know, usually they'll have, hangers on the back or something that said bride or groom, but I figured, why can't we just engrave the chair? That's more fun. It's more fun to me, at least. So I figured the velvet material will engrave pretty much just the same as those hats that I did just a couple weeks ago, and so I used the same settings, kind of ran from there. It worked really, really well, and it was super easy to set up. Takes maybe 5 minutes to get this set up.
Alicia, I just DJ'd a wedding a couple weeks ago, and for some friends, and they had this sense that they did everything mostly themselves, and by that they worked with people that they knew. People, somebody that had a laser. I'm not sure who that was. I'm not sure. They talked to some people who did some catering, friends that they knew. So they really kind of did what I call like a grassroots wedding, where you talk to people you know. And when doing that, you start finding that the customizing, whether you're doing stemware glasses, tumblers as wedding gifts for the wedding party,
right,
or you're doing custom decorations for the wedding. Every wedding that I've been a part of as a DJ, for the most part, has always wanted to be unique in some sense. And this was they did a themed wedding by Disney, Beauty and the Beast type thing, and they made a whole bunch of their own decorations and trees, but they use a lot of lasering to help with some of the stuff.
Right.
And again, the uniqueness of like having a chair and stuff like that. It's something that. You don't even have to sell this chair. You make this chair and then you rent it. I mean, everybody's renting for a wedding. You're only going to do it once.
Right. And I know we do have a couple customers in our customer base that do exactly that. They have either an event planning business or, a rental business, things like that, where they have these items, they laser it once, they have it forever, they'll rent it out over and over and over again, and then you have this amazing item that you're just going to keep making money off of.
Right.
Make it generic, bride, groom, that's all I'm doing today, and I mean that goes for pretty much any wedding.
Yes.
You might have to switch it up a little bit, but
right. I mean, obviously you can have multiple sets, because you might be doing multiple weddings in one weekend, or where you might have two brides, you might have two grooms. It's
right.
Keeping up with today's market for weddings and stuff. There's a lot of different options you can do there. So.
Well, and you can have these stock items, and you could still go back and make, more custom items for, different occasions. So it's good to, you got different options you can dive into.
Do you know about how much this chair cost?
I think it was $120, $130 for two chairs.
Right.
So, and they're really, really nice quality, and that velvet on them is super, super nice. Right. So I like it a lot. But getting into the design for these, I'm going to show you just like how quick and easy it is to design things for your AP Lazer. I'm using LightBurn. That's kind of our software of choice here. It's really, really amazing. I know if you don't have it already with your system, or if you're looking into buying a machine with us, you can talk with your sales rep about getting that kind of worked in with your package as well. I highly recommend it. There's a lot you can do in LightBurn that you can't do in RDWorks, and especially if you're not really a huge designer, you can use this as your design program for the most part, which is really nice. So I'm going to start. All I'm going to do to start, I'm going to make that backing for the chair, just kind of a baseline to go off of. So I got my circle tool over here. I'm going to go ahead, go up to the lock, and I'm going to change it to the exact dimensions of my chair. and I believe that was 12 by 14. I can go ahead and lock that. And I'm going to change this to a material tool down here. So the colors down here, this orange and the blue, that's just going to be that border for your material that you have in your machine. So we have that laid out there, and I know my design is going to fit within that boundary. Now I already have this stock design pulled up. It's just this nice little floral border. You know, pull in your own artwork, do your own fun stuff. If you are part of the AP Lazer family, these design files will be ready for you in APLU. Just log in there. If you don't have a login, reach out and we can get you a login for that. But all I'm going to do is go up to import. I'm going to find that artwork. If I can remember what it was called. Let me see what it was called. Floral border. That's what I need. Got too many things on my desktop. There we go. Alright, so you can see we got that pulled in here. This is just set as an image layer. You could definitely run that as an image, but since it's pretty straightforward, I'm going to go ahead and convert that to a vector really quick. So we pulled that in, we right click, we're going to go ahead and do trace image. If you zoom out, you can kind of play with these sliders down here until we see that pink border. And you can go back down to the flowers here and kind of make sure you're getting everything you want in there. And again, you can adjust that as needed. I think that looks great. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. I'm going to delete that original image, and I'm going to change this from that material and change that to an engrave layer. So now we have that tool layer, just the border of our material, and we have this as a fill layer. Obviously, we're going to need to size this down to fit onto the chair back. So I'm going to go ahead and you could scale this down by typing in over here. I'm just going to kind of play with it to make sure I have it where I want it there. And kind of play with things a little bit. I think that looks pretty good. And obviously there's some spill off here. So to get rid of that spill off real quick, I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste that outline there. And if I select both outlines and hit this target, they're going to line up perfectly. And then if I hit one target, or one of the outlines, and my artwork, and just this little box down here, the Boolean intersection, it's going to go ahead and it's going to cut off anything on the outside there. And you still have your border. You know it's still going to fit on there, but you just cut off anything going outside it. It's really helpful if you're doing, you know, things that go outside the lines. It's super helpful for me. But again, you know, this is already super quick, you know. And then all we need to do to customize it, you could put a name in there, you could put, you know, both the bride and groom, like an anagram in there, different things like that. I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to write bride. I'm just going to kind of space it out, make it a little fancy. Perfect. And then obviously this font's a little boring, so I'm going to change that. I've got this really nice elegant wedding font. And then what's really nice about LightBurn, I know I've talked about it several times before, I love their text feature. You can change the horizontal and the vertical spacing really easily just to make it look a little nicer here. We're going to get that all together there. I think that looks much better. And then we just scale that up to fit into our space there. And then you're good to go. I mean, that's it. It's all in that engrave layer. You can send it to the machine. I will say, for this, it's a little bit concave of a chair backing, so I'm using their 4-inch lens to kind of get deep in there. I might run 1 or 2 passes just to get a little bit of the different pieces that might get missed there. But my original run of this for the bride chair, I did do that 4-inch lens, and it worked really, really well. And the settings I used for this is on our 100 watt system, so it'll vary a little bit for the different wattages, but I used a speed of 10 and a power of 13. And this was just experimenting off of what I had for the felt hats, and then I did do a little tiny test dot on the bottom of one of the chairs. Just, you know, you're never going to see it, but then I know, oh, that's the settings. It worked great for me. So
if I can just step back a little to expound a little bit on what she mentioned when using. She said she's using. Alicia said that she's using a 4-inch lens to make sure that things are kind of dug in a little bit deep, or cut in a little bit deep, or engraved in a little bit deep. But for those of you who aren't aware, our laser comes with a standard 2-inch lens, which is used for most jobs you might need to do with the laser system. But we have additional focal lenses available. And what that 2-inch means is not the size of the lens, it's the size of the focal range.
Exactly.
So when we have a 2-inch lens, we have a 2-inch focal range. When we have a 4-inch lens, we have a 4-inch focal point, 4-inch focal point, which gives us a larger focal range of effectiveness for the laser beam. So what that does is that allows us to do uneven surfaces, curved surfaces, or slightly uneven surfaces, because we have a larger effective range with the 4-inch focal lens. When doing something like this, the engraving on the edges or extreme heights or contrasting of the engraving might not be as dark or as effective as, say, right in the middle where that optimum focal point is.
Right.
So by making multiple passes, that laser is going to be precise, so precise that the precision used, it's going to go back and fire the laser again in every point it did the first time, precisely where it did the first time. It's that accurate, it's that effective, and what that's going to do is that's going to help us level off the engraving look, so it all looks uniform across the entire job. Sorry, I just wanted to expound on that a little bit.
No, that's a really good point, and you could kind of see in the time lapse there that we had pulled up, it kind of, there's little pause points you can kind of see there. I was using the 3-inch lens with that instead of the 4-inch, and just kind of leveling the Z table as I go. It's a little more complicated. I think it's easier just to throw the 4-inch on there and just run it once or twice, you know. So definitely, it wasn't the quickest or easiest way to do that. I tend to do things overcomplicated, and then I figure out the simplest way to do it afterwards.
And in addition, you know, the 2-inch and 4-inch lens aren't the only lenses. I should also mention, we also have a 3-inch lens focal range, which is good for doing a few different things, cutting acrylic and doing bricks and stuff like that. Then we also have a more precise, more fine level 1.5-inch lens that comes in with our lens kit. We sell it as a whole kit. That has very little tolerance on focus, but gives you a much finer laser point, which is used for certain applications. And there's not a benefit over the 2-inch lens except for when you're doing certain materials and stuff.
Right.
But there's explanations and all that in all of our user manuals, and also our 24/7 tech support team is always available to help with that, with information on that.
It does seem very complicated starting out. I didn't know there was anything other than a 2-inch lens when I started here. I've worked with lasers before, but I've only ever used a standard 2-inch lens. So it was kind of mind-blowing that you could get so much range just by changing up the lens there.
There's a large assortment of lenses out there. We went with some kind of standard sizing, but there's everything from a 1/2-inch lens to a 2.5-inch lens to a 6-inch lens, and
That's
I see an 8-inch lens. But really, the most effectiveness we're going to have is for the 4 standard sizes that we offer as it is.
Right. And I definitely would recommend, if you're looking into purchasing a laser, just bundle that in. You know, it is a little bit of an extra cost, but you can talk more with your dedicated sales rep, or you can even buy it from our shop, I believe, just going on the link. If you already have your laser and everything, I definitely recommend getting that lens kit. It's super helpful.
Yes, thank you, Frank. Also, Frank says in the chat here, if part of the design needs extra pass, use the cut selected graphics to have just that part engraved again.
Yes.
What Frank's saying is we can actually break apart that design, and we can select just certain elements when it's a vector file to just engrave just those parts again. So we can also focus. If we want to take the time to set up more detail, we can actually take the time to select just those elements and give them a different layer and just cut those selected graphics again.
That's a really good point. And I can show you again, if we cut back to my computer screen here, say, the text went really good, but I need to do another pass at these flowers in the border. That could be as simple as changing. You could actually, you could just get rid of it, or you could change that to a layer that's not being output. If you just hit that slider there, then it's not going to run that, and it's going to run everything else.
And that's the benefit of having that tool layer there. As long as you have that tool layer there, it's going to keep that same orientation even if there's nothing in there. You can
Exactly.
come in, you can bring an entire different picture in there and overlay it, and it's going to go exactly where you place it in that tool. So.
That's why I loved using the tool layers, because then I know as long as I don't change that origin and I haven't touched the machine, that's super important. Until you know that you are satisfied, don't touch that machine.
Right.
Don't move your materials. I've done it too many times, and you're not going to get it lined back up.
You're not. Yeah, I've gotten lucky. I've gotten lucky twice in 10 years, over 10 years. So I don't like those odds.
Yeah.
I only play those odds in a casino. But anyways.
Well, I know we have some questions lined up. Is there anything we could kind of dive into there?
Actually, yeah, I can get into. There's some questions that we're feeding off of what we're talking about right now here in the chat. Is there a way to change or program pathways when you have a pattern in LightBurn? My wife bought a pattern off Etsy, and it jumps all over the place.
Oh my
just
goodness.
getting started in this business. Just getting started in this business, 2016. That was Skip Helton in the chat. Skip, there is some settings you can do inside of LightBurn that might affect the order that it does the engraving or cuts when you're working with a vector file. What he's talking about in basic terms is, whether it be in RDWorks or LightBurn, is there is the option when you create a vector file, you create pieces, you create elements, and then it puts it into a vector file, whether it be a DXF or something of a vector format. It's almost like coordinates and order and stuff. And what it does is it has a natural order. The natural order is the order in which you create it. So if I create a rectangle and then a square and then a flower and then a bird and then a letter and then a whatever, if we are engraving by natural order or created order, it will go in that order. It will jump around and do those elements.
Right.
There is settings within the cut settings or fill settings that I'm trying to find where it's at.
I think if we double click like we're going to change the speed and power, is it as simple as changing the fill all shapes to fill groups to fill shapes individually,
Right.
those different bullet points there?
Oh, that's why I'm having an issue.
I know I always do fill all shapes at once, but let's see if I change it to individually and hit OK and pull up this preview. Let's see kind of how crazy it jumps around there. I guess this is all kind of one thing, so it's a little different, but there are the different settings there you could play around with. I would say fill all shapes at once is going to get just everything in that same layer.
Exactly. And then if you're wondering, thank you for bringing that up. If you're wondering how it's going to perform or behave, pull up that preview window and play it.
It's just this little TV guy up here. Yep. I know. I always reference this before I run anything. I usually have the playback speed set up to 40. And I'll just kind of let it run there. You can skip ahead. There is also kind of a hidden feature in here. It's not really hidden, but I just discovered it not too long ago. Say you lost power at this point in your engraving. That's awful. You think you're toast. You're done.
Right.
But with LightBurn, there's this little tiny guy down here. Start here. If you click that guy, you can send the job to the laser from that point. As long as your material hasn't been moved in the machine, it'll start right where you left off.
Yes.
You could also, change it so that it comes from the top down to meet that point if you're not exactly sure where it stopped. So it's super, super helpful. It's definitely been a lifesaver for me.
Well, and Frank from Pop's Custom Signs and Laser Designs in the chat mentioned that earlier. Frank's Custom Signs and Laser Designs and everything else, I should say. But
exactly, yep.
And then Bonnie's joined us as well. Thank you for joining us, Bonnie. And she also mentioned to Alicia that she also usually likes to do things the hard way before she figures out the easy way anyways.
It's been my
a respect
whole
for
life.
The development. Right? So I do have some other questions here. Some of these are out of our user group and Before You Buy, and some other Before You Buy group on Facebook. One of them is from Sue Keller, and it's about LightBurn. Does an AP laser use the DSP version of LightBurn? I have a 2816. My trial ran out and I need to purchase. Just making sure I'm buying the correct thing. Thanks. The answer to the question is yes. The DSP version, I don't need to get into what it's referencing in terms of software and the interface. but that is made for the Ruida controller, which is what is used in our laser as well as other platforms. But yes, primarily, that is the correct version to use inside our laser system. So to answer your question, the answer is yes on the DSP. There was another LightBurn question here. LightBurn upgrade. I keep getting notices that there is a newer version of LightBurn available. Are people upgrading? Question mark. Curious if I might lose anything along the way. Thanks. That was from Keith Westfall.
That's a really good question.
It is. And Alicia, when was the last time you upgraded your LightBurn?
Well, since the new one came out a week or two ago, I haven't touched
Okay,
it.
so what happens is sometimes during LightBurn upgrades, as when we upgrade anything, we might lose some of our settings and preferences. If you can look on my computer screen here, there's actually an option if you go to, File and then Export Prefs. You can actually export your preferences is what that's referencing, to a folder, to a location somewhere. And then you can perform your upgrade to the newest LightBurn, because newer is usually better. And then if you don't have your preferences there, you can import your prefs by going to the same file menu and then import prefs or load prefs backup. Okay? So there are options to make sure that before you upgrade, go ahead and save if you're using preferences. Some people don't use it. They just go into their layers and change their speed and power settings every time. Some people save their preferences, meaning their colors and their layers are going to be the same every time. So they know that they're going to do brick, so they're going to use the brick color in the color bar because that's the settings they use for the brick. And then the next time they're going to use acrylic, so they're going to use 08, the gray, or because it's close to clear, so they might use that reference to acrylic. There's a lot of people that do a lot of different nuances. You can rename things and layers and stuff like that. So it's definitely good to back up your preferences when possible before performing your upgrade.
Yeah, that's really good because that's the whole reason I haven't upgraded yet is I hate having to reset everything. I got to find my laser again. I've got to change to inches again. I've got to do.
Now,
it's
I will also say,
so.
is, as an IT specialist as well, I always like to say that you can't beat the paper backup. Okay, what I mean by that is keep notes, keep a journal, keep a log. When you find materials, keep a log, write down, okay, I'm making layer blue. This is my acrylic setting, and this is what I have on layer blue. So if something does get wiped out, your computer crashes, and you don't have those backed up preferences or anything, you can manually reload that to all your new settings. You don't have to refigure all that stuff out again. So I'm pretty sure Alicia's keeping a journal somewhere in that mind of hers, but paper, I'm pretty sure we're not going to find it. I don't mean to call her out, but I did. Sorry. Anyways, always try to keep backups as much as you can. And the paper journal for me is more of a discovery and learning process. You keep that, then you always have something to reference, and it's kind of part of my learning process anyways.
I will say, if you're already part of the AP Laser family or once you join, the user group is an amazing place to find suggestions for settings, for different materials, for different, project ideas. I know when I'm blanking or I've forgotten settings or I'm starting something new, I can pop open the search bar, and search in, like today I searched for rubber because I've got some rubbery material that I'm going to be running. And so I just searched that in there, and then
yes,
a bunch of people already had suggestions on what to do.
Our AP Laser user group, the family that we have in there, everybody's waiting to help each other. I love it. It's a very good community, very good family. Moving on, Rich Molina asks, I forgot, how do we check the hours on our machines? 2816 here, thanks. Well, it's the same for all the machines. And it's not really, if you want to see how many hours you've ran the machine, you can do that. All you have to do is inside of LightBurn, you would go to the edit menu and then go to get controller info inside of LightBurn. Okay, inside of RDWorks, which I have RDWorks, but I can't open it up right now because I already have control of it with my LightBurn, so I'm not going to try to confuse the machine or the computer. Inside of RD Works, you would go to the file, and then go to config, then system setting, and then click the system info tab inside the config menu on the system settings there. That's how simple that is. Good questions, very basic questions for using the software and the machines.
Speaking of RD Works versus LightBurn, there is a question in the chat here asking, there's someone trying to transition from RD Works to LightBurn and their files keep getting reversed or mirrored. Have you ever run into that? I know I haven't had a ton of experience running between both, but that's very, very interesting.
I haven't, but it might be a matter of the, I'm sorry, let me find the...
While you're looking for that, there was another question from Roger here asking on the material that is on the back of the chair. That's just a velvet material, very similar to felt. I will say just make sure, this one I know was safe to run, but with anything new that you're running, if you're not sure, just ask for that material data sheet just so you can look through the composition and make sure nothing's going to be unsafe to run in the machine. But this one was good to go, so we're good to go there.
I'm sorry. I'm looking for, I know there's, in RD Works, there's a setting, and I have to find it inside LightBurn, but there is a setting on importing vector files or DXF files.
And that could be something we dive into more
Yeah,
later
we'll
as
look into
well.
later,
We'll,
right.
we'll save that question. We'll bring it up next time. So, are there any other questions
there are
we
some
had
more questions.
logged?
I'm sorry.
No, you're okay.
Has anyone ever lost a key to their machine?
Ooh.
Kara Frey did. She recently moved her Lazer from her brick and mortar to her home, and now the key is missing. She called our tech support team. We have world-class 24/7 tech support, which is available for the lifetime of the machine. And as long as you're part of our AP Lazer family, we're going to keep supporting you, which is more than just tech support and helping you get a replacement key. It's also a way to help you get over the hump when you're having design issues and material issues and guidance. If you just need, I've been banging my head against the wall on this thing for a while, don't bang your head against the wall. Call our 24/7 tech support team. They'll answer the phone, or you leave a message, they'll call you back, and they are very helpful in making sure that they get all of your questions answered. If they don't have the answers, they find a member of our tech team that does have the answers. They get them involved. So it's a great question. It's a good panic, but don't panic too long. Call our tech support team. There's always answers somewhere. So, Dave Miller asks, he has a question. Is the chuck rotary really worth spending the money? I have the slide rotary I got with the machine and find it somewhat of a pain to use. It seems from all the posts I see that the chuck rotary is quite easy to use. I am seriously considering to bite the bullet and order one. Absolutely. I love having access to a cradle rotary for some items and the chuck rotary for other items. And if I'm doing a batch of tumblers, if I'm just using the chuck rotary, it's so easy just to loosen the chuck, pull the cup up, slide the next tumbler on, tighten it up, push start, go again. Okay. There's also devices that you can get that are available online that are 3D printed that allow you just to quickly pop, that clamp onto the chuck rotary and allow you to pop on different size tumblers and pop them off. There's a lot more flexibility with the chuck rotary. Is definitely worth the investment if you are doing cylindrical items or anything that can work with a chuck rotary. Everything from a pencil to a big tumbler or cooler jug. As long as we can get it to fit within those jaws in the chuck rotary, it's definitely worth the investment of having just consistency in the engraving. I actually will do, back when I used the cradle rotary for tumblers, I would never do double passes on tumblers. With the chuck rotary, I have tested and found some settings where on certain tumblers I will do multiple passes on tumblers, and they always line up accurately. And the reason I might do multiple passes on tumblers is because I'm going to do what I call a cleanup pass. Sometimes with some tumblers, the powder coating is done in a way that's just thicker or more dense than other powder coating methods from manufacturer to manufacturer. So I'll burn the one layer off, so I don't want to go too hot because I don't want to burn the metal and discolor the metal. And then it'll do a cleanup pass where after it does the first pass, it'll go back and it'll do the pass again, second pass, and everything comes out really sharp, really crisp, really clean. But of course, you want to do some testing before you just jump into doing multiple passes with it.
Oh yeah,
but
absolutely.
The chuck rotary is definitely worth the investment if you don't already have it. And having said that, if you already have the chuck rotary and might find benefit in the creator rotary, it's worth the investment. The more tools you have in your tool bag, the more effective you are at doing jobs.
I absolutely agree. Especially, again, if you're doing like a tumbler business, if that's what you do, then that is, I'd say, pretty much a necessity at that point. It'll make your life so much easier. Once you use it, you'll understand why. But, you could be, like me, I say I love LightBurn, and I don't like Artie Works. You could be the other way around. It's completely up to your preference, but I'd say the chuck is... It's
right.
definitely
Yes,
worth the
definitely.
investment.
Moving on to some other, and there's a lot of questions that I'm kind of covering, kind of the tech is going to roll right into the question and answer. We're going to try to wrap a few of these up with giving a good enough explanation. Tama Robinson Blevins asks a question about the fume extractor or venting for 2616, and I'll say for any AP laser. We have it vented outside through a window. Most of the smell and smoke comes out of the bottom sides and doesn't make it to the vent in the top. What's a good solution? I guess this is one of the downfalls of an open architecture. Thanks for any suggestions. Well, yes, there is open architecture, and as with any fume extraction, we work with CFMs, or cubic feet per minute, and we need to create an environment where we're going to have an airflow that's going to be pulling any fumes or smoke that might be coming off of the laser engraving. So one option would actually be to contact our tech support team and see if you can upgrade to one of the larger fume extractors that uses adapters that moves more CFMs per minute, depending on what model you have already. Another option is, I've answered this question before and I've seen other people answer the question, is some people have created, whether using tarps or heavy blankets, their own kind of enclosure, if you will, so it kind of blocks the sides off, so it focuses that airflow to actually pull and extract the fumes out of that area before it can escape out the sides. Either way is a decent method, but again, the biggest thing is make sure you just get something that moves enough air to extract the fumes. It also helps if you're in the middle of if you're doing it in the middle of the closer to where the fume extractor is.
Right.
A lot of the one thing that's going to help a lot with this is those of you who have our new lowrider platform, is you'll be able to lower the laser head down to the piece instead of having it further away in different places. So that will also help with some of the fume extraction as well. Doug Dunn asked, "Hey AP Laser Family, I have two questions for y'all today, if that's okay. We have two projects to do on our 2616 LR for lowrider, and they got an 80-watt one, a stovetop cover, and a leather knife sheath. Should we laser before staining, and any setting suggestions on leather sheath? Thanks in advance." So this is a kind of a multifaceted question. Should we stain the stovetop cover before staining? Should we laser before staining? No, I guess, should we laser before staining? I guess the question is, are you staining the leather? Are you staining wood? The question is, you need to test some material and see which result you like better. Both will work, and the true preference is going to come down to you and who are you making it for.
Exactly.
What look, if you show the options, this is how it looks when I engrave it before I stain it. This is how it looks when I engrave after I stain it. And you show them the different options and you allow them to choose. There's not a finite answer or a definite answer to, well, you shouldn't engrave when it stains. Some stains, if it has formaldehyde in it, don't do it.
That's a big one.
Engrave it and then stain it. But you have to know what's in the stain as well. Usually it's just standard polyurethane stains or lacquer stains, stuff like that. It's going to be fine to kind of engrave through the stain after it's set up. but it all depends on the look you are going for afterwards. A lot of times that stain is going to protect the leather or the wood after it's done, so you might want to go through and stain it again otherwise, afterwards anyways, after your laser. So. And then I just have a couple more questions. Don't have a lot going on here. What I'm going to look at is after lasering, my laser head returns to the far back left corner, but it's hitting and making a grinding noise. When it returns to the project, it's off center. The setting, any help would be appreciated. That's from Shelly Green Pearson. Shelly, if you haven't already, please contact our AP Laser technical support team, because that is a speed setting that is on our homing that can be adjusted. So what's happening is it's moving too fast back to its home position. So when it's hitting that corner, it's before the center has a chance to read, it's bouncing and creating that grinding noise, which is making it skip the belts and lose its true origin and homing point. So what you want to do is definitely contact your tech support team so we can slow that setting down. And again, that number is 844-364-8211. And they will be able to help you in finding that setting and making sure it's the correct setting. We can easily test that by hitting the reset button. When you hit reset, it's going to home it, when we're not running a job, obviously. And then that's going to see, is it moving too fast? Is it bouncing? If it bounces 1 out of 5 times, that's a problem. So we want to slow that down to make sure we're not having those issues and losing your true home there. And then I got a couple more questions, but they're going to be kind of related to, for those, Jonathan Moon asked, for those doing full etched pre-need headstones, how are you handling death dates? For those who know, we also have a lot of monument customers in the memorial industry. That's going to be covered a little bit more in detail on our next live, because we're going to be doing some monuments and some bigger granite pieces, I think next week.
Should be next week. Yep.
And I will touch base on those death dates, and I will also hopefully have some members from our from that industry, from that monument industry, that can help us and explain how to do that. Most of the time with death dates, we're often looking at doing a sandblast method for those anyways, but if you're doing a lasering on those, there are some sandblast methods that are kind of like skim coating that a lot of people will do. They'll cut the stencil out with a laser or whatever, and then take it out and do a skim coating on site so they don't have to remove the stone. We can talk a little bit more about that next week. And other than that, I don't really see many other questions. There is one. I'm sorry. This might be our last question because we're getting kind of wrapped up here. Unless there's anything in the chat, or I haven't looked at that in a minute.
Nothing in the chat currently.
Patrick C. Tope asked, question I've seen people using min and max power settings that are different. I was told in my training to keep them the same. The AP Laser doesn't know the difference. How are your guys using these min-max? Does it affect scan and cut? Primarily using RD Works, but I also have LightBurn, but very rarely use it. Thanks. First off, Patrick, if you're not using LightBurn, when you get a chance to, please try to start using that more. There is lots of information out there on min and max power. And maybe a miscommunication. Our laser does know the difference, and it does affect settings. Min-max power in another world was once referred to as corner power in an older system. It's specifically when cutting, the min power, max power is going to have an effect. If we're cutting a shape, and the min power is going to be, when it slows down and makes turns, it's going to use that min power, and it's going to use formulas to adjust for making that min power. And it's going to do, that's specifically when cutting. So usually you'll want to use a min power that's 2 or 3%, up to 5 to 8% lower than our max power. Again, you want to do some setting to see if it's actually affecting what you're doing. If you're doing a solid cut through might not have as much of an impact. But then for engraving, there are some advanced techniques that people will use min and max power settings. But you really have to look at getting into some of our, get our user group and ask the question there. You'll get a lot of information where people are developing their techniques and their methods on how they do 3D effects and other stuff like that to really take you to the next level. Mm-hmm. I don't want to get into an advanced training class and answering this question. I just want you to know that there are members of our AP Laser family that are really be excited to help you in finding some dialed in settings and how to use the min-max power. But otherwise, if you're just doing standard engravings and cuts and stuff like that, then keeping the min-max the same is a safe bet. But there are, it's when you start getting into doing some more advanced stuff that you can find benefits for the min and max power settings.
Right.
We are just about out of time. I just want to check here real quick, make sure I'm not missing anything in our conversation.
Well, while we're wrapping things up too, I know we focused a lot on that chair today, and I think we do have a photo of the finished product as well. We got it done in the machine there, but I do have a photo loaded of that finished piece as well. And it looks super, super nice. I really love how it turned out. But, this is just one of the many things you can do. We've done champagne flutes. We've done, last week, or the last live stream, we focused on the mirror engraving, and there's like custom bar signs you can do with different acrylic. Serving trays. You could customize an entire wedding just with your AP laser. You could do the whole thing. And again, you could do, these really basic designs that you just engrave once and rent them out. There's a lot that you can do just with your machine. The possibilities truly are endless. I know that's our tagline, but it really is, Well,
there's so much money. I hate to sound like this, but there's so much money in creating stuff for weddings.
Well,
and if you can make somebody, it's about creating those priceless memories, right?
Exactly.
And if you can market your products to your customer base to where they feel like they're truly doing something that they haven't seen at another wedding, or they've seen another wedding, so now they have to do it too. So
exactly.
And then offering the customized, making the custom to tailor it to their wedding, to tailor to their needs and create their priceless memories. They're going to talk about for a long time. And then when other people ask them, hey, remember when you did your wedding, where'd you get that from? They're going to talk about you.
Exactly.
So there's so many possibilities out there. A simple Google search for wedding stuff rentals, and you see how much people are paying just to rent table numbers.
Right.
They're paying to rent table numbers more than it costs you to make it.
Exactly.
I'm not joking either. And that's something that you can knock out in, one day you can knock out a bunch of different styles of table numbers and then offer different colors and stuff. So lots of different options there.
And with our open bed, you don't have to do just the small things. If this chair was already put together, I couldn't pull it apart, we could still slap it on underneath the machine and run it that way.
Bottomless, limitless.
Exactly.
You can raise the machine up, and we're not contained to a box. We're going to cover that some more next week. Having said that, we are just about out of time here. Thank you for joining us, for joining myself and Alicia. Alicia did an amazing job today, as usual. She makes me look good on here.
I try.
Make sure that sounds right. It's like, she makes this show amazing, I should say. Again, if you want to get involved with the conversation, go ahead and post your questions in our user group. Frank did post a question on grayscale. I'm going to cover that next week a little bit. That's a much deeper question than a quick answer, Frank, so I don't want to breeze through that. But if you want to post a question, find us on our AP Laser Before You Buy group on Facebook, our AP Laser user group. Post questions in there. People will answer, but we'll also talk about it on our lives, on our workshops, on our AP Laser workshops. Don't forget to find us on Instagram, on Twitter, or X as they call it. Click like and subscribe. Find us on all of our social media, because we're growing at a rate right now that you definitely want to be a part of this family. The family's only getting bigger, and it's going to help accelerate your success and whatever business ventures you get into with your diversification and using our AP Laser. Thank you for joining us today, and look forward to seeing you next week.